Creepy Crawlies of South Central Kentucky by Amos Goodman. This will be a list of some of the creepies and crawlies that can be found in South Central Kentucky. So these are little bugs. The first one is the brown recluse. This one pictured was on the wall of my dorm, which is kind of freaky. They're native to the South Midwest and southeastern part of the U.S., as you can see on this map. They are fairly common. I know at my house we have them all over the place, and they live in close proximity to humans a lot of the times, taking advantage of undisturbed areas such as attics or garages, and they are famous for their necrotic venom, which can cause rotting of the flesh around a bite. And something interesting that I read while researching this was that they actually, a lot of the times, pesticides and extermination efforts fail and may even help the brown recluse because they are scavengers as well as predatory. So, in a study, I can't remember who it was done by, but they found that about 85% of brown recluses, when given the option to eat dead or live prey, chose the dead prey. So if you're killing all the bugs, they often, and also brown recluses don't get affected by the pesticides like sprays because they crawl above the ground. So you're helping them, so they can be a real booger to get rid of. The next creepy crawly is the common house spider. This one was, on a house. They are indigenous to the United States, and they are synanthropic, meaning they benefit from living close to humans, which is probably why they live in and around a lot of houses. This one was under a porch in a web. You can see it got some crane flies. Yeah, they're all over the place in my experience. Oh, and something interesting that they do is instead of tearing down and rebuilding or moving to a new place and rebuilding their web, they often just reuse it, and once there gets a bunch of debris in it, they'll just cut the debris loose and just keep using the same web. And they're often one of the many species of spiders responsible for cobwebs. The gem moth. It's a small moth that is native to Europe but is common in the United States. They are sexually dimorphic, where the males are a little bit lighter and they have bolder patterns and lines than the females. They both, the way you can tell that they are gem moths, or one of the ways, because they look just like pretty, I mean, there's nothing too special about them, but you can see here and here there are little dots, and all gem moths have little dots in those areas. And this picture was taken with the flash on, so you can tell it's a lot lighter than this picture, but it's the same moth. It was inside a house, probably flew in the night before when a door was opened, and but it was still alive, so there you go. And they are in the family Geometridae, I don't know, which are all the larvae from the moths in that family are what we refer to as inchworms. So, yeah. Here are some termites. These were under a piece of wood. I couldn't tell for sure, but I believe that they are eastern subterranean termites, but I wasn't for sure. I think that's it. Anyway, termites are social animals and they live in colonies, kind of similar to ants, where they have uh, queens and workers and soldiers. Here are some workers just doing the work, and the soldiers are the ones with big heads. They have larger mandibles that can be used for protecting the colony from foreign invaders like ants and whatnot. They also have there are none pictured here, but I've seen them around the area where these were in years past. Uh, they also have a caste called swarmers, which are darker in color and have wings, and they are actually fertile females that will get, well, fertilized and fly off to new locations to start new colonies. So, yeah. Termites are pretty well known and famous because they can cause a lot of economic hardships by eating wooden supports of buildings and whatnot. These were not, they were just chewing on some logs. The tan jumping spider. It's a small jumping spider, about 8 to 13 millimeters long. They are native to the eastern to Midwest, North and Central America. They're relatively common. I see them a lot. And they can often be openly seen just kind of chilling. Like, they enjoy vertical spaces rather than horizontal spaces, so you can see them a lot on walls. This one was actually on a plastic table. The image is actually flipped upside down, so I could fit it nice with this text, so that's why the texture of the table's on the bottom. But anyway, jumping spiders of all kinds have not all of their eyes, but their primary eyes are actually forward facing, and they're sort of like, I've read that they're compared to binocular vision. They are good for, I guess, three-dimensional viewing, and they can so they can jump and calculate the trajectory for catching little bugs, little buggers. They have really good vision. Relatively. Well, actually, they can see in UV light as well, I'm pretty sure. So, the six-spotted tiger beetle. These are pretty cool. First off, as you can tell, they're kind of iridescent and shiny green. They're not super big, but they are a voracious predator. They can be found as far north as Canada and as far south as Kentucky. How about that? They feed mainly on small arthropods such as caterpillars, ants, and spiders. They're usually found in like open, shaded areas of woods. This one was on a concrete back porch, not super close to any wooded areas. I don't know. But they are famous for being fast. Though this certain species, the six-spotted tiger beetle, is not the fastest, it's still real quick. I'm lucky I got this picture of it at all. And they can actually go blind while chasing prey because they're so fast, because while they're running, their photoreceptors don't get enough light to make an image of the prey, so they'll often have to stop and go to reorient themselves while they're trying to chase prey. So they're so fast that they blind themselves. It's pretty crazy. And they're also the fastest crawling insect in the world. Not the six-spotted tiger beetle, but a species of tiger beetle. The eastern carpenter bee. Now, I have a love-hate relationship with these guys. They are a semi-social bee that makes nests in various types of wood, although they do not live in hives. They tend to make their nests and live in small groups. They're like sort of like neighborhoods, I guess. Um, there are no workers or queens. They're just males and females. The labor is split up among the sexes and also among older females and younger females, where older females will tend to go out and forage and collect pollen and nectar, uh, and the younger females tend to stay closer. And and the older females tend to be the ones to drill the holes in the wood, and the younger females tend to stay closer and tend the nest. While the males, though they can't sting, they kind of act as bodyguards. They're very territorial, and they'll fly around you, making a lot of buzzing noises trying to scare you off. Um, their nests are systems of tunnels and dead wood. They actually will drill a hole, like they'll drill holes and or tunnels, and they'll lay eggs, and then they'll seal it off and lay another egg and seal it off all the way up to the end of the tunnel. And the eggs hatch. The way they lay them, I can't remember exactly how it was, but they either the males or females are in the front, and the males hatch first and go out and start doing stuff, or the females hatch first and go out and start doing stuff, and then the ones near the back are the other sex that hatch later. So there's no one getting trapped in there. So where the love hate relationship comes in is they're pretty good pollinators. I see them all over the place, but they will drill in, well, wood. And this picture was actually taken under the deck of my house, where a little group of them seem to take up residence. So this is concerning because a lot of holes will obviously weaken the structure, but also, I mean, they're good pollinators and stuff, and I don't really mind them. They've never gotten stung or anything. The most they've done is fly around my head. So, I don't know. I just don't know about them. They're pretty cute. So, on the, well, we're talking about bees, so why not talk about the common bumblebee? The common eastern bumblebee is the most commonly encountered bumblebee in the eastern United States. They are highly adaptable and can live in many environments, including rural, suburban, and urban. They are important pollinators and are used by farmers and greenhouses, both naturally and commercially. You can buy bumblebee eggs and raise them for this purpose. They tend to hang out around a redbud tree in our yard a lot, and they're just all over the place, always pollinating and getting pollen and nectar from flowers. They do a good job, though they are a little bit more aggressive than the wood bees, I will say. I've still never gotten stung by one, so I don't mind them. The May beetle, or as people around where I'm from call them Junebug. It's a colloquial name for many beetles in the genus Phylophaga, which are New World scarab beetles. They don't have many distinctive markings. They're just kind of either gray or brown, clumsy, round beetles. So it's hard to tell, especially for a novice like I am, what the exact species is. So we'll just have to settle for the genus. They're nocturnal and come to lights left on at night. And from my observations, from years of being around them, they tend to have a very clumsy flight pattern, and they just run into everything, and they can't crawl very well either. And to tell you the truth, I don't know how they don't all get eaten, because they just don't seem to be good at much of anything. But they're everywhere, so I guess they're doing something right. I don't know. This one was taken on a styrofoam cooler that was on a porch with the light on at night. So there you go. The tiger moth. I believe, now I'm not 100% sure, but I believe it is the Nias tiger moth. There are a lot of different tiger moths, and they all look kind of similar. But I'm like, judging by just looking at a lot of pictures of different species of tiger moths in the genus Appenthesis, I am about 85% sure it's a Nias. So they can be found in most of the eastern and midwestern United States up into Canada. The specimen here was on a brick wall and under a light at night. I think they're real pretty. This one was even harder to find anything about. The Cirthina carinata is a true bug, which means it has sucking utensils as its mouth. And it's in the same family as assassin bugs. It is a predator, and apparently they are good at eating. They are good at being subterranean under the ground, I guess in tunnels and stuff, and they are good at hunting mold crickets, which I didn't get a picture for this project, but we have a lot of those around where this guy was taken, so it makes sense. They're a pretty cool looking bug. The maple looper moth. It is found in eastern North America. They are on wing, which means they're flying around, not caterpillars, from April to September. These pictures were taken in late April, very early May, so it adds up. The larvae feed on a variety of vegetation, including many native deciduous trees. There's only one generation per year, and the one here was on a window. Well, it was next to a window. Or was it on a post? It was on the front porch. That's the point. The rosy maple moth, Dryocampa rubicunda, is, out of all these, in my opinion, the cutest creepy crawly. It's not very creepy, and it probably doesn't crawl much. It mostly flies. But they are... This picture isn't good at showing off their colors. They are pink and yellow and very fuzzy, and they're not very big. They tend to lay their eggs on the undersides of maple leaves, which is what the larvae eat. They are most active in warmer months of the year, with the height of mating and egg laying being in July in moist areas. Usually there's only one clutch of eggs laid each year, but in some southern states where it is warmer, especially in Florida, females can lay up to 3 clutches of eggs a year. The adults, like other moths in the family, Saturnidae, like other moths in the family they belong to, they don't eat once they pupate. So this guy pictured here, he already had his last meal, or her last meal, as a caterpillar. So it's pretty rough. This one was on the front porch under the light at night. Here is a green lacewing. I believe it is this species. Like 90% sure. They look kind of similar. Like they're all green and lacewings. It can be found in many parts of North America, Europe, and Asia. The adult bug feeds on nectar and pollen and honeydew produced by aphids, and the larvae are predatory and eat aphids and other small arthropods. The larvae are... I've never seen one in real life, but I looked up pictures whenever I was doing research, and they're pretty mean-looking little buggers. This picture was taken at night beside a window on the front porch. Here is a furrow orb weaver. It is, there are many species of orb weavers around the world. This guy, a lot of spiders look sort of like this. It was real hard to figure out what he was. So I got it to the genus, I believe. Real challenging. He was on the back porch at night on his web, which he built in an old shelf we have out there. Sometimes they're found near human dwellings, other times they're found out in the woods or in shrubs and grasses and damp areas. Um, yeah, I see a lot of them around. They're pretty common. The tulip tree beauty, and though it lacks bright colors, it is a beauty. It's very pretty. Um, it is in the family Geometridae, which is the same one as the as one of the moths we looked at earlier. Uh, it is one of the larger moths in this family, being 43 to 55 millimeters, in length, or in its forewing, and they're, I think they're pretty cool looking. They're big, and because it's in the family Geometridae, it they are also ones whose larvae we would refer to as an inchworm. The one here was photographed on the front porch at night. Here's a nasty little bugger. It's not in focus, but most people from South Central Kentucky and probably many other areas would recognize this, the Lone Star tick. It's a hard body tick common throughout the eastern United States and Mexico. They are often found in secondary wooded areas, which is like the woods with a lot of underbrush, not old growth, and the edges of biomes, such as the edge between a forest and a prairie, which this was near the edge of a forest and a field, so matches up. The females can be identified by the white dot in the center of their shield, which is their back, basically. And that's also where they get their name. They have gained attention recently. It's just come out recently, though they've known about it for a while, that they sometimes their bites can cause humans to become allergic to a certain carbohydrate that is found in red meat. So any mammal meat that's not a primate, you can become allergic to that, which would be a real bummer. The odorous house ant. Now, these guys are real common all over the place, just making their nests under things. They are a small 1.5 to 3.2 millimeters long dark ant that is native to North America. They can range from southern Canada to northern Mexico. They live in polydomous and polygynous colonies, which means polydomous means they can have multiple nests. So it's like a system of nests, but it can all be the same colony. And I've found a nest here whenever I flipped over a old water tin. And polygynous, which means they have more than one reproducing queen. So there's not just one, it's a lot of them. They are called odorous house ants as well as stink ants and coconut ants because when they are squished, they apparently give off a pungent odor similar to strong coconut, blue cheese, or turpentine, which I have personally never smelled, but I don't often squish them, so I don't know. They will act as predators, it's a typo there, or scavengers, eating other insects and most household foods. They can, a lot of times these are the ants that'll invade your house. They really like sweet foods, which is why another name for them is the sugar ant. And they've even been seen farming, quote, farming, which is protecting and tending to aphids for the honeydew that they produce. So it's an interesting relationship. Yep, they are very adaptable and can live in a variety of habitats. The American cockroach is the largest species of domestic cockroach, largest species of common cockroach. It's about 40 millimeters long on average. They're native to Africa, but were introduced to what is now the U.S. in as early as 1625. So I guess that's where they got their name, the American cockroach. They are now in most human settlements with a temperate or tropical climate. So they don't get in super duper duper cold areas, but most areas they've probably taken up residence. Uh, they have the longest life cycle of all common cockroach species, which is about 700 days. And though they're nasty little buggers, on the bright side, they mostly live outside near moist areas like sewers or things like that. This one was in between an area that is consistently pretty humid because of a steam vent and a gym at a college. So, yep, they're actually, you can see them a lot in that area at night when you're walking around. The American carrion beetle. This is one of the creepier and more interesting ones that I found. They are a member of the Sylphidae family, native to the eastern United States, with its northern border being southern Canada and its southern border being northern Florida all the way over to Texas. They're known for laying eggs in dead animals, where its larvae eat the raw flesh and fungi. The adults apparently don't eat the raw flesh, but they eat the larvae of other carrion beetles as well as fly larvae, as to so they can give their kids, their offspring, a better start. So in a way, it's kind of like parenting, because they usually stick around until either their larvae have pupated or have gone into the ground to pupate, or they or the food's gone. So maybe they're just being good parents. I don't know. The ones here, so the ones in the picture, you can tell there are a few insects in here. The one I'm talking about are these guys, with the bigger guys with the yellow pronotum with the black dot in the middle. I didn't actually realize when I took the picture they were on something dead, but because I didn't know what they were. But now that I'm looking, that sure does look like something dead. I don't know. Anyway, there's a big bunch of them. Pretty gross. Here is a bronzed cutworm moth larvae. I don't know why it was on the porch, but it was. Because you'd think it'd be out in, like, the grass or something, eating. Well, anyway. So, it is in the family Noctuidae. The adults tend to have a forewing length of about 14 to 19 millimeters, so they're not super duper big, but they're not super duper small. Their larvae feed on a variety of grasses, including cereal crops, which can cause issues for farmers. And like I said, I don't know why this one was on the porch, because there's no grasses near it. I don't know, man. There's some dead worms around it. It's kind of gross. Here is a bug that I thought was a lightning bug when I took the picture, but upon further investigation, I found out it is actually a type of soldier beetle that resembles the lightning bug, but doesn't light up. You can tell the difference, aside from there being no light, because, which this isn't a great picture for it, but the head is not covered by the pronotum, which is this orange part with the black dot. The head's out. In true lightning bugs, the head's covered by that. So that's how you can tell. These soldier beetles are predatory and will feed on small arthropods as well as pollen and nectar. Which, it might have been a different type of soldier beetle. That name, I don't want to botch it up too bad, which looks almost identical, and I couldn't tell. So I just went with my gut. I don't know. Here's a common green bottlefly. This little guy right here. He was on what looks like some poop. Yep. So it could be a few species of it, but as L. sericata is the most common and matched how it looked, I chose that one. It's larger they're generally larger than a housefly, being about 10 to 14 millimeters long. They will lay their eggs on, man, 10 to 14 millimeters sounds, now that I'm thinking about it, that sounds big, but I guess that's about right because they're big. Anyway, they'll lay their eggs on carrion and feces, where their larvae will often feed before going into the ground and pupating and becoming more flies. These are one of the species that goes by the name of green bottle fly that are common for sheep strike, which is where a fly will lay its eggs in the larvae. Will lay its eggs in the wool of sheep, usually because it's covered in poop and urine, and it'll then the larvae will crawl down in there. They'll hatch out and crawl down into the wool and get to the skin and start feeding on the skin down there, which will cause large lesions and can cause secondary bacterial infections. But on the other end of the spectrum, these are the type of maggots used in maggot therapy, which is where you put maggots into a wound that has dead tissue and they'll clean it out. So, there's good and bad. Here is a grass spider. When I took the picture, I thought it was a wolf spider, but I came to find out that wolf spiders don't have webs. So it's a grass spider. Who'd have thunk it? They are funnel weavers and will weave their webs in the shape of funnels, often with the narrow part of the funnel being protected by leaves or some other structure, and the wide part, well, obviously going out from that. They'll usually set in the narrow part and wait for little arthropods to crawl across the wide part. When they feel the disturbance on the web or see it, they'll jump out and grab it, which is pretty cool. This one was photographed in a field under some trees. Here is another type of jumping spider in the genus Phidippus, but I could not figure out the species because it looked a lot like the redback jumping spider, but apparently that's only endemic to California. Or not endemic, but it's only found out in the West, mostly in California. I don't know. But they, like all other jumping spiders, have really good eyesight, and this one exhibited a behavior that I found pretty interesting and I read up on, is that it seemed actually curious about us. As you can see, it's looking up at the photographer, which actually was not me, it was my dad. It was a big ordeal trying to get all these. But yeah, pretty cool. They have really good vision and seem to be curious about what's going on. Metricus paper wasp. This guy was, or this was a female actually, I believe, was under a seat cushion on our back porch, which could have been bad if someone sat on it without us knowing. People usually don't use that seat anyway, so it wouldn't have mattered. They aren't usually found much farther north than New York, but recently one has been certified and spotted as far north as Maine, and there were some others in southern Ontario. They usually build their nests, well, they do build their nests out of paper or wood products that have been softened up with enzymes in their saliva, and they make it into this papery substance that they, right here. Interestingly, some in this species have been seen making nests with other foundresses relatively commonly, from what I understand. which means there are multiple females making a nest together. But even more interestingly, they have been found sharing nests with other species of wasps from this genus, which they're all paper wasps, but two completely different species sharing a nest. It's kind of cool. Here was a harvestman. I narrowed it down to the genus two ways because juveniles of this, well, a lot of spiders in this genus look like, they're not spiders, excuse me. A lot of harvestmen in this genus look like this, but also this is, I believe, a juvenile of a certain species that we see the adults all over the place in the summer around this area. So I believe that's it. So harvestmen, or aka granddaddy longlegs, which is what I learned to call them, or daddy longlegs, which is what the internet seems to call them. They are an arachnid, but are not spiders. They're their own little group, and you can tell they're not spiders because here, where a spider has two body segments, this is fused together. In some harvestmen, it's even like you can see it's almost an hourglass shape there. In some harvestmen, it's just like a circle or an oval. There's no definition at all. So harvestmen will eat a variety of small invertebrates and even eat decaying plant and animal matter sometimes. They there's an old wives' tale that harvestmen are the most poisonous spider in the world, but their mouths are too small or too weak to penetrate human skin, and that's the only reason we're safe. Well, that's not true on two counts. Number one, they're not spiders, so they can't be the most poisonous spider in the world. And number two, they don't even have venom glands, so they couldn't be the most poisonous or the most venomous. I guess they couldn't be the most venomous anything in the world because they don't have venom to bite. So there you go. The one in this picture was on a tree chilling. A horned passalis beetle. It is a black beetle with deep grooves running. It's a shiny black beetle with deep grooves running down this back end. It's elytra, which are the hard things covering wings on bugs. Its distribution is throughout the eastern United States and Midwest up into southern Canada. It gets its name because it's not a good picture because it was scurrying to get away, but you can kind of see it reflecting there. They have a little horn-like structure in between their eyes, which I never noticed until doing this research because I see these things all the time, like flipping over logs and stuff. Just never got a good enough look at them. So it is an important decomposer of wood and only eats decaying wood, so it won't eat human structures as long as they're not rotting. So there's no real issues with like economic hardships here. The one here was under, well, a piece of moist rotting wood. Here's a large crane fly in the family Tipludiae. Crane flies are most often found in moist environments, but can be found in, not arid, but dry environments as well. The larvae may be terrestrial and be laid in moist places or in the ground, or on like moist rotting logs or something. Or they can be aquatic. Most of the larvae just eat dead plant matter. Some eat living plant matter, which can cause issues for farmers by stunting the growth of because they eat the roots of plants, and they'll stunt the growth of certain crops. And some of the aquatic ones are actually predatory. So, yeah. Though they look like big mosquitoes, adult crane flies do not bite, and some have such a short lifespan that once they are adults, they don't even eat. They just get out and breed, and that's about it. So, yeah. And a common tale that is spread about them is that they kill and eat mosquitoes. That's sometimes they're called mosquito hawks or skeeter eaters. which is not true. They are incapable of eating another insect. Like, anatomically, they can't do it. The only time anything like this may happen is if one of the predatory aquatic larvae gets a hold of a mosquito larvae. They provide important food sources in the larval stages and in their adult stages for many animals: arthropods, mammals, birds, amphibians, fish, all of it. And the last but not least, and certainly in my opinion, the creepiest of all the creepy crawlies here is the antlion. These are out in our barn. I never knew what the little dents in the dirt were, but now I do. I couldn't figure out an exact species, but they're in the family Myrmelontidae. I'm probably botching all of these scientific names, but I don't know. Just say it with confidence. The reason they're called antlions is because the larvae prey mainly on ants and other small things, but mainly ants. And they have a really cool way of doing it. What they'll do is they'll back up into the ground and throw dirt or sand up into the air with their mandibles, making a little conical pit. And they'll hang out at the bottom under the ground with their mandibles in their head, like right where the bottom of the pit is. And a little ant or some other critter will be walking along and fall into that pit. And when it falls into the pit, the antlion sticks its mandibles out, which are, I mean, relatively, they're not very big, the whole thing is, but relatively, they're pretty big. Sticks its mandibles out and grabs the little critter, and the mandibles are actually hollow and act as straws, and it sucks the bodily fluid out of the critter. Pretty crazy. This one did have a pit, but we uncovered it for the picture. It'll probably find another one. There are a bunch around where this guy was, so it must be a good spot. Hope this presentation didn't make your skin crawl. All photos were supplied by R. Goodman on iNaturalist unless stated otherwise. The photo on the title screen and the same photo here, this, was got from the official website of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And here's a link. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks.